morning, everyone, or good afternoon, whatever it happens to be when you're listening to this. Today, we are hating dieting. I hate dieting. That's what we're talking about today. So welcome to HERPath, the podcast for busy women looking for purpose, health, and happiness. So who here has dieted before? I have. Elise, have you ever dieted?
Yes, constant.
Nancy?
Yes. Sure.
So why? Why do we do this? What have been some reasons that you've done a diet? And tell me the diet that has been the most interesting that you've tried.
I guess I'll start. Oh, I wanted to say why I started to diet, or why I have like my first diet. I remember being like 15 years old and going to prom, and it's usually for an occasion, or when I have to wear a bathing suit or go to a wedding or something like that. Then the other reasons I've dieted in the past were for health reasons. And I'm going to share two most interesting diets that I've done. One was for health. It's called the Master Cleanse. I don't recommend it for anybody.
Doesn't sound fun.
It was interesting. It was a very interesting experience. But basically, you don't eat anything. You get all of your calories from drinking this lemonade. And every morning you do like a flush, where it's basically salt water, where it bypasses your stomach, goes straight into your intestines and colon, and it just like flushes out your system.
Ooh.
I did that for 14 days, and that was interesting. And then the other diet that I did.
Wait, but did you lose weight? Like, did it work?
That's so funny because I didn't own a scale. I didn't own a scale for a lot of years.
Okay.
Actually, for probably 15, maybe 20 years, I didn't own a scale. I had a pair of jeans that if I started to get snug, then I would, change what I was eating. And so I don't know if I lost weight with that
Did your jeans
diet.
end up fitting, or?
Jeans, yeah, they were fitting okay. I think they got a little loose. But then, of course, as soon as I was eating, they got back to normal again. But I did it for health reasons. At the time, I was a heavy smoker and drinker, and I used it to just do a detox from my system.
Okay.
And went immediately back into eating processed foods and drinking and smoking. So anyways, it didn't work.
So the Master Cleanse, I think I've heard of that before. And doesn't sound like something that you could do forever and ever long term.
No, it's extreme, and I guess you wouldn't really consider that a diet. It's more of a cleanse.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
how about you, Nancy? Have you ever dieted before?
Yes, I have. I've done Atkins. I did the cabbage soup diet. I've done the HCG diet, which I think for me, the HCG diet produced the most results. I'm not sure it was the healthiest, but for sure it produced very, very, very rapid results.
Can you tell us what that is, Nancy?
HCG? Yeah, I took some homeopathic drops. What it does is it creates your body to release fat, but you do a really restrictive diet. It's a 500 calorie diet, but they've also increased it to 1,000 calorie, which I think is much more doable. But the company I worked with, they have a shake that you do in the morning, and then basically you do 6 ounces of protein and a vegetable twice a day, and you can have a fruit twice a day. But you really can't exercise very rigorously because you're not, you don't want you to build or break down a lot of muscle.
Yeah.
That one, I think, was probably the one that I lost about 20 pounds in 3 weeks.
That is an impressive amount of weight to lose in that short of a time. Did you keep it off?
Once you have to go off it in a certain way that you cannot bring in sugar or carbs.
So you did make some lifestyle changes in addition.
But it completely cut my sugar cravings.
Wow.
It's not an easy diet to do. but it would probably produce the most results for me. And it really cut my sugar cravings drastically. But as someone who was a sugar burner, it's a really tough diet to do. So I think mental control really has to come into play. And I was working with a coach at the time, helped me overcome the cravings and that need to eat.
Yeah, and that definitely can be helpful when you're making a change or a new regimen, is to, have a coach or have to be able to address some of those barriers and those challenges with making a change.
Yeah.
How about you, Elise? Have you ever
Oh,
done a
yeah.
diet?
Yep. Oh, yeah. I think I've done them all. The weirdest one that I ever did was, and I don't remember the name of it, but I had to go to this office once a week and weigh in. And then you went and you bought your food, and it was like all these packets of like powdered food, and you would like add water, and like it was not a good thing, and it was not sustainable. I did lose some weight with it, but then you can't live on powdered food forever. And yeah, so that was the weirdest one. The best one for me was I did some hypnosis uh, for weight loss, and that turned everything around. That got rid of cravings for sugar or flour, and really, really was a lifestyle. But you had to go back and, have a refresher. And so ultimately the demise of that for me was when the person closed their business and moved. So I've still kept most of that. I wouldn't say that it's all gone. But I think I love the idea of some kind of a protocol with coaching. I know that I have been doing that. Beth has been helping me, and it is such an amazing difference when you have someone that understands what you're going through and that can give you tips and tricks and tools to help you stay on track with whatever protocol you choose. And I know we talked about this in an earlier episode, but I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. I do that as well. And I know that, with my work with Beth, that has been an important part of any kind of like good protocol.
Yeah, so a diet is usually a specific regimen of eating and drinking in which you restrict or control your intake in order to achieve a specific outcome. And it's either weight loss or improved health. And why do we hate it? Why is it something that we feel is so challenging and difficult? A lot of the times it's because we restrict ourselves to the point where it's not sustainable in the long term. I've done all of them. I've done slim fast shakes where you have to do a shake in the morning, a shake in the afternoon, and then, a small meal in the evening. I've done, I think the one that I did for the longest was a South Beach diet. I did that to get ready for my wedding, to, lose weight, to look good in my dress. I've done Dukan. I did paleo. I've done, a Whole30. I've done keto. I've done, really kind of looking for ways initially to lose weight fast. That was my initial intention, to lose weight fast. And that's where I think the challenge comes in, because when we are desperate or rushing to lose weight fast, we are willing to do the things to get us that quick fix, but are not willing to do it in the long term to maintain that loss or to maintain those benefits. And so that is something that's challenging when we look at something as a diet, is if we're looking at a quick fix and we're willing to restrict ourselves to the point of feeling deprived or frustrated during that time, it makes it really hard for you to want to continue in the long term with these types of protocols. When you really restrict yourself in a rapid, short period of time, your metabolism kind of goes into shock, honestly. And your body then adapts to that very restricted way of eating in such a short amount of time that it slows it down. And when you try to change that regimen even slightly, it feels like the weight comes back with a vengeance. And so it makes it challenging to really continue that very restricted way of eating long term. And then the frustration comes like, oh my gosh, I'm eating very little and I still can't keep this weight off. It's a big shock to the system when we do major drastic changes that are unrealistic. Something else with these diets, and I don't know if you all felt this way when you try to follow a protocol, is that they're just not very personalized. We all are not going to respond the same way to a specific way of eating. And diets are not one size fits all. And a lot of diets don't take into account the individual differences we have with our metabolism or the individual differences in our lifestyle, our individual taste for foods as well. So, when I mentioned, someone mentioned the cabbage diet for, the whole week, like that definitely is not going to work for everyone. And probably not everyone's going to choose to do a cabbage diet. I mean, there's some people that get really gassy and bloaty, some people don't like cabbage at all. But that person who gets gassy and bloated, doesn't like cabbage, who's desperate to get a few pounds off, I'm sure they're willing to tough it for 2 weeks, even though they're going to be miserable to fit into, a wedding dress or to look cute on vacation, with no intention of doing that long term. It's not very personalized, doesn't take into account, what someone can do for the long term. And again, diets are very short-term focused. They're very about getting that quick result now. They don't, really allow for sustaining it as a lifestyle change. And once you stop eating that way, once you stop, the HCG, or once you stop the powdered food, or once you stop the shake, once you stop, the specific supplement that is supposed to really shut down your hunger, a lot of times the hunger comes back, the weight comes back. I know when South Beach was one of the first ones that really helped me look into what I was eating and how it was affecting me. That one really was avoiding sugars and carbs and eating mostly protein and veggies. But I really wasn't paying attention to that. I was just wanting to follow a protocol so I can get some weight loss, for the wedding. But I did notice that when I added back some sugar or some carbs to my diet, that I would just immediately, like overnight, gain 5 pounds back. And, I could see it in my fingers, like my ring would be really tight, or my toes would look like sausages, like in my little sandals. And it was like, what the heck is going on here? But I wasn't really thinking about what I was putting into my body or how it was affecting me. I was just looking at the number on the scale. I was just looking at that short-term goal. I wasn't looking at the long-term, ability to be able to sustain this. And I really didn't like how just going off the protocol, short-term, I would get that weight back so quickly. But that's because I was looking at the short-term goal. I wasn't looking at the long-term ability or possibility of continuing this way of eating. And then also, I don't know if you all had this happen to you when you were doing any of these, any of restrictive diets, feeling guilty or shame or anxiety anytime you went off of that protocol. Even just for like that, like whenever I just give the example of the South Beach, I would have, at that time, I was drinking a lot of beer. I think that's what it was for me. And beer is very carby. And that's one of the things that it can cause a lot of rapid weight gain. And so then feeling bad about not drinking, in social settings sometimes. I know that was challenging for me because I was in my 20s when I was doing that. And there was a lot of going out, to eat. And so feeling like, oh, I can't have fun. I can't, eat like a normal person. I can't drink like a normal person. I know I felt really shameful or anxious about going out to eat while trying to stick to, a restrictive, way of eating. Have you all ever felt like emotionally impacted by any of these when you tried to diet?
Oh yeah, for sure. I I have done a lot of different diets. Just when you had mentioned South Beach, I'm like, yep, I've done that one. A Whole30. Oh, yep, I've done that one. Keto. Yep, yep. I've done the autoimmune protocol. I've been vegan. Have done the Mediterranean diet. I've done the Wales protocol. I've done the Zone diet. And something that it's super restrictive, but something that I've done with each of those diets is take a primary principle or something that I thought made me feel really good and try to incorporate that into my life. But to answer your question about just feeling left out, right? Like that just feeling left out and kind of like an outsider and avoiding those social situations. And I just would. And I, I don't, and then the guilt and shame for me came in when I would stop the diet or eat something off the plan
Right.
and thinking what a failure I am. And, something's wrong with me. Why can't I do this? Other people seem to be doing it just fine. And so I think it can be really challenging, especially because food is so social and the dieting culture like takes that social, unless you're like in with a group of people that are following that same restrictive diet, it can make it really, really challenging.
Yes, there's a lot of social pressure when it comes to food because we celebrate with food, right? We show love with food. I always give the example of my mother-in-law. Anytime in her presence, and I know she'll never listen to this podcast, but she is a food pusher, and there's no way you can say no to this woman. I mean, she will literally put a spoon in your mouth. If you just open it, she will shove it into your mouth if you're not careful. And so, sometimes if we're people pleasers too, and we're trying to stick on it to a protocol and we're around someone who's a food pusher, it's you feel bad. You don't want to hurt their feelings in saying no because they worked really hard to make a dinner. And so you're willing to, go off protocol and then feel like shit afterwards to avoid hurting somebody else's feelings. Um, and so that's like one situation that one example where I could give where you feel, kind of bullied or, into eating when you don't want to eat because you're trying to follow a specific protocol. But yes, and then people ask you, why aren't you eating? What's wrong with you? Are you on a diet? Like, are you sick? Do you not feel good? Oh, you look too skinny. You need to eat more. I mean, it's challenging. How do you, sometimes you don't want to, go into details and say, oh, I'm doing South Beach right now, or I want to lose a few pounds so that I could, get ready for the summer, or, oh, my cholesterol's high, and I'm trying to do something to make it better. Like, what a buzzkill. Sometimes you don't want to go into that in a social setting, but um, feeling pressure to just kind of fit in and not stick out sometimes can lead us to, go off protocol or find it challenging to stick to a specific, let's just call it diet.
Yeah, I find the social situations can be really challenging at times. So, I really don't drink. And the people around me, like there is still that pressure. Oh, just have a drink or have a sip of this, or I found this new drink. Let's have one. And it is hard. And you do feel like, all right, do I need to go in and talk about, oh, I have acid reflux and I really can't have alcohol right now. And or whatever. It is challenging. Or, I got this great pasta dish. Just try a bite of it. You'll really love it. It's so good. There's a lot of that pressure. And And sometimes I'll leave a social situation exhausted, like, oh my gosh, it's so much pressure. I feel like I made it through high school already. The social pressure should be gone now, but they're still here and they're still alive and well.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't end. And yeah, sometimes just being straightforward when you don't have the energy for it, can be jarring. Like, I can't eat that. I'm going to shit on myself if I eat that. All right. And then, oh, okay, sorry, maybe they'll leave you alone. But not everybody has the ability to go and be that straightforward, right?
Right.
But
Right.
also, diets don't address the underlying issues of why we overeat in the first place. So, just following the list or going through the steps of, what I'm putting in my mouth or not putting in my mouth, um, is not enough to really address the underlying issues. And that's where having a weight loss coach or a health coach, or a accountability, partner can be really, really helpful, because some of us are emotional eaters, some of us are stress eaters, some of us have addictions to food, and we're not very aware of some of the triggers or the challenges or the reasons why we overeat. And diets don't address any of the underlying issues. And that can make it really challenging to have long-term success with a particular diet or with trying to get a quick short-term fix. Um, some diets can also be so restrictive that you don't get all of the nutrition that you need from a way of eating. So, for example, that cabbage soup diet, let's just name one, cabbage soup diet. Like, where's the protein in that? Where is the rest of the nutrition that you need for long term, for your hormones, for your energy? Well, yes, you're going to be digging into some fat during that time, but in the long term, you may not be getting everything that you need to maintain a very, well balanced, healthy profile.
Right. For me, emotional, like shutting my emotions down was how I would use food. And yeah, and I think food sensitivities and I think that's where the HCG diet really helped me, because you're not eating any sugar, any gluten, any corn, any sugar, corn, gluten, eggs. So for me, it was like literally a cleanse, because I think my weight had a lot to do with being, I don't know if it was allergic, but sensitive to certain foods. So all the inflammation really went down when I did that particular program. It wasn't sustainable. I mean, you can't do it for very long, but I think for me it was a good jump start. But, unless you're working with a coach, you're not really getting at the real reason why you've got the weight, which for me it was emotional, shutting my emotions down. And finally, I had to get to the point where I had to sit and feel the emotion. And then when it would come up, I'd be like, okay, what are you really hungry for? If I asked myself that question over and over, I'd get to a deeper and deeper answer. A lot of times it was just feeling heard, feeling I needed a connection or support system. So for me, that's where coaching really came in handy.
Right. And I don't think that is something that many people we're not trained on doing that. We don't learn that anywhere. We don't learn it in school, in our family environment. At least I never, learned about managing emotions or even acknowledging emotions. And the way we dealt with emotions a lot of times were by either quelling them with some kind of substance, whether it was sugar, food, or alcohol. And actually, my family, we had a lot of alcohol abuse in our family. And so I feel like, that was the go-to for dealing with anything, is to numb it, to dull it, to distract ourselves from, any negative emotional, vibration in the body.
I
And we
remember
can definitely do that. Yeah.
my first breakup with the boyfriend, it was always about, oh, let's go get a milkshake, let's soothe it with something sugary. It's
Oh yeah,
like,
ours was let's go get drunk. Let's go get hammered. Let's go get unconscious, basically. And I'm not exaggerating. Another thing with diets, because we've named so many, so that goes to this yo-yo thing. You try a diet, you lose the weight, you gain the weight back. Let's try another diet. That one didn't work because my weight came back. So let me try another one. You get the weight loss. You don't stick to it. Weight comes back. Well, that diet obviously didn't work because my weight came back. It's this unrealistic expectation that that short-term way of eating and then going back to the way you ate before, that it doesn't make sense. Why did my weight come back? And so it must have been the diet. So let's try another diet. And so this whole dieting mentality is a term that I hear a lot, is that you lose weight and then you gain it back. So then you diet again, you lose weight and then you gain it back. So this yo-yo dieting is very detrimental physically, but then mentally, it really makes you feel like there must be something wrong with me. There must be something broken with me that I'm going up and down. And so that dieting mentality, that yo-yo dieting, can also be super frustrating and challenging to deal with. And then looking in the mirror, of course, it affects your body image. When you see yourself yo-yoing, that definitely can contribute to the negative body image, low self-esteem, especially when you're not achieving your weight loss goals, and you're going up and down in your weight.
yeah, I think the yo-yo dieting really contributes to people's metabolism being broken. For me, I think for a long time I was a sugar burner. So shifting from sugar to fat burning has really been helpful for me. I mean, it's not easy, but I totally see myself as a sugar. I think I was very hypoglycemic, had a lot of anxiety, and I would just eat more carbs, and it would just be a repetitive roller coaster cycle.
Yeah, and then we end up with this negative relationship with food, constantly labeling like this is good, this is bad, and looking at food as our enemy instead of a way to nourish our body. And sustainable weight loss, having a healthy relationship with food, the best way to attain it is through long-term lifestyle changes and prioritizing how you feel mentally, physically is really what matters. And, you know, consulting with either a weight loss coach, a life coach can be really helpful to help you identify what are the underlying reasons for the overeating and helping you develop a long-term way of eating, relationship with yourself, relationship with what you put in your body to really optimize maximal health. Thank you all for joining us today. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.